But when I was a kid, it wasn't just having the toys. You played with the toys. Sometimes it took weeks to play out a scenario. And I remember the first time um, Marvel released the Weapon X figure, Wolverine in the gear with the helmet and the green wires all over him and the harness and everything. Um, and I remember that toy wasn't called Weapon X, it was called Logan. And it was really interesting. And I remember who Weapon X was because I had the Marvel cards, but I had also seen it on um, the animated show. They did a flashback with him in a red tank and he had all that on. So I knew that I was going to make that. So I took a big Poland Spring water bottle, cut it up, I put it into the Terminator flesh tank where we'd hold the bottle of flesh. I put the cylinder in there, filled it with red liquid, water with red food coloring, tied the little cables onto Logan up top, and just dumped them in and put a top on it and taped it down. And that was my first dio I did with my figure because couldn't really use the figure for anything, but I put them on display. So I knew that I was eventually going to do this again. And recently, Marvel has released over the last 5 or 7 years some great looking Weapon X figures. And so this particular model is one that I picked up very cheap on eBay. And I decided to put together less than a $20 dio. And I'm going to I mean, it's mostly kit bash stuff that I already had, but I'll show you what I used. And you can use a very, very simple solution to make a very cool Weapon X dio. It's a little rickety, but it can be reinforced with a variety of things if you're really requiring it. But and you could expand it out more, build more to it, do more with it. But this alone will be a nice little, could even be like a nightlight situation. And I'll show you how I did it. All right. So I'm going to do an external view here and just kind of show you guys the dio. First of all, this thing is not held together with anything other than sheer will. So Logan is in there suspended by 2 cables. You can really use anything for cables, whatever you have laying around. This, for example, is a USB cord that I'm not using anymore. This particular, let's just take him off. This will make this easier. All right, so first things first, it's a simple stick and click light. That's all I'm using to power the thing. I just lay it in the middle and I dump him over it. If you're wondering what the base is, it's a plastic planter holder. You buy these things in the dollar store and Lowe's in mass quantities, and you use them just to make planters. Now, you can spray paint it this way, or you can flip it over and spray paint it this way like I did. Now, it's flimsy as hell, so you're not going to get a ton of support with it. You can flip it over and fill it with insulation foam if you really want, or spray foam, and then sand it down flat, and then it'll give it some stability, which I still may do. But essentially, I just spray painted it with black Plasti Dip and then rub and buff the crap out of it. Good old tried and true method of making tech. And it comes out looking like a grate. And a grating does kind of look like a lab. Now, as far as Wolverine goes here, if we twist, this toy should look very familiar to most of you. This particular Wolverine Weapon X model is a Marvel Legends series. It's a pretty cool figure overall. Let me just do some zoom and some focus here. You know what, we're going to switch this around. There it is. So if you look at this, I mean, it's a pretty detailed figure. Now, I've gone in, I've rub and buffed the helmet, I've rub and buffed some of the electronics. Give it a little bit more shine. I could have rub and buffed the claws too, probably, but I let that go. Now, the cables that I chose to use, I had left over from my Ash vs. Evil Dead Power Glove. They are glued in up top here. They're just bike chain, stuff you pull on the brake handles and stuff. Now, the container itself should look pretty familiar. Anybody who's gone into Walmart should have seen this. This thing is a container. And the container is for the Alien X Treasure figures, where these guys come in it, and you use the little toy that's included to cut them open and pull out little guys or little toys or whatever the hell it is. I don't even know, really. But they're like $15, and the container just looked like a perfect Weapon X container. This comes in this gold color. All I did, again, flat black, rub and buff, and then little touch-ups here and there, just giving it kind of a techie feel.
I literally run the cables through the back, and you can glue them, or you can not glue them. I hike him up a little bit, and I just drop them in. And you twist it on. Sorry if the camera's going all over the place. I had not planned on how I was going to shoot this intelligently. And it just twists on. And this is a piece, so there are little bits on the end. I ground those off, sanded it, wrapped a piece of foam around it. Again, I plasti dipped it, EVA foam, and you could coat it in PVA glue and make it worse. And then these little bits of tech, this is from a Kylo Ren ship piece from a model kit. These are both from Kylo Ren ship. And these little cables, again, like I said, you could use anything. It's a bunch of the bendy parts of straws. I just stretch them out, cut them out. You get them like $1 in the Dollar Tree. And when you stretch them all the way out, they have a good length to them. So you just put a couple together, glue them together. And then you just kind of have them running off into nowhere. I mean, eventually I can make a power supply and attach it. These actually came from Gundam. They were Gundam parts. So you could take bigger straws like this and use them and create like power supply and nodes and things like that. And I just glued these right down onto the base. Turned on the stick and click light. He fell down a little bit, so he's going to have to get pushed. Just kind of bring it in. And you bend your tubes kind of how you want them. And I just sort of like having him face front a little bit. And like I said, if you hike him up a little bit, you can see his feet dangling. The other thing that's pretty cool is that this piece pops off up here. And you can put a light in there. And because this is such thin plastic, it creates kind of like this golden glow over him, which I like a lot. So that's something you can do too. You could put lights with remote control in there. Because like if I were to switch this, let's just take this off, flip this around and put it up top. And then drop him back onto the platform. The overhead light creates a different kind of look, so I kind of just have it shining through. First of all, the top piece glows, which is kind of cool. It glows through my paint job. But the overhead lighting is interesting. And if I turn off my light that I'm using to kind of power this video here, the tank is foggy enough. You don't even need to fill it with liquid. You can do that if you don't want to light the bottom. If you have a light in the top that you're on remote for, you can seal the bottom, fill it with liquid, because this is easily a dunk tank, which I may do as well at some point, and then maybe put a fish filter in the bottom so the bubbles come up. But you get a wide variety of what you can do with it. But yeah, like I said, this is, dollar, leftover bits from Gundam models or any models, really. I mean, it's just kit bashing. Just to give it a little bit of tech looking. And it's just interesting looking enough that it works. And it does not require a ton of effort, and it does not require a ton of skill. Just a little bit of paint. And that's all she wrote. I am not wild about how slidey Logan is, so I may go back and glue him in place, but I am currently a fan of the bottom-up method of lighting. Just kind of like the look. And the tube's kind of going off into no man's land is fine for me. Why do I have a tube coming out of the top? I don't really know. I drilled the hole and put that in there because I also assumed that I might actually do that with a light at some point. But for now, I'm just kind of doing that. But yeah, I mean, most of what you're looking at is this here. It's not complicated. And, the figure I got super cheap on eBay. Loose, doesn't need to contain all the parts, all the heads, anything like that. You're really just looking for the helmet and the gear. There's 2 versions of the Marvel Legends Weapon X. You can pick whatever one makes you happy. But yeah, overall, I, kit bashed myself a little Weapon X tank. And it's super simple. Didn't require water. Maybe one day I'll put water and liquid in it and just kind of see how that looks. But for now, I'm totally happy with this. So yeah. That's a dio for cheap.